calling the board's October 15th public meeting to order. To protect the public's health in response to the COVID-19 outbreak and as permitted by Governor Pritzker's Executive Orders 2020-07 and 2020-55, this meeting is taking place remotely. This meeting is open to the public via audio conference and is being carried live by CAN TV. Those participating by phone are on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. We have a court reporter making a transcript of this meeting. I will begin by taking attendance so it is clear who is participating in the meeting. Please say here after I read your name. Police Board Vice President Paula Wolf.
Here.
Police Board Member Matthew Crowell.
Here.
Police Board Member Michael Eady. Police Board Member Steve Flores.
Here.
Police Board Member Jorge Montes.
Here.
Police Board Member John O'Malley.
Here.
Police Board Member Rhoda Sweeney. Police Board Member Andrea Zopp.
Here. Rhoda is here. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Okay.
Reverend Edie and I were on the wrong meeting, so he's going to be joining you.
Okay, all right. So we do have Rhoda Sweeney here. Well, we do not have superintendent. We have First Deputy Eric Carter.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here.
Sergeant Daniel O'Brien, representing the General Counsel to the Superintendent.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, Sydney Roberts.
Here.
Chief of Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Internal Affairs, Karen Conal.
Good evening, here.
Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety, Deborah Witzberg.
Here.
And Executive Director of the Police Board, Max Caproni.
Here.
Reverend Edie, has Reverend Edie joined yet? I do not think so. All right, we'll check back in with Reverend Edie in a little bit. We will now proceed to the items on the meeting agenda. We will have time at the end of the meeting for public comments. Once again, those participating by phone are currently on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. When we get to the public comment portion of the meeting, we will unmute each speaker. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the board September 17th regular public meeting?
This is Paula Wolf. I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Matthew Crowell. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion passes. The next regular public meeting will be held Thursday, November 19th, 7:30 p.m. Whether this meeting will be in person or remote will be determined closer to the meeting date. Is there a motion to close a series of executive sessions for the purposes of considering personnel matters and litigation as authorized by sections 2C1, 3, 4, and 11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act?
This is Paula Wolf. I so move.
Is there a second?
Matthew Crowell, I second.
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And Reverend Edie, can I ask you to just acknowledge that you're here? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yes, I am here.
All right, thank you. So we have full attendance by the board. We now have a special treat. We, the members of the board, we've got an opportunity to know this person quite well. It's now my pleasure to present Maggie Hickey, who is the independent monitor of the consent decree. Maggie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie Hickey, and I'm the independent monitor for the Chicago consent decree. And I wanted to just go through an overview with you all regarding the consent decree. And I've found that even though the consent decree has been around for about 18 months, that there's still many people across the city of Chicago that aren't exactly sure what the consent decree is. So I often start my talks just with simply, what is the consent decree? It's a legal document that requires changes to the Chicago Police Department's policies and practices to improve policing for everyone in Chicago. It also includes other departments in the city of Chicago, including the police board. The required changes that we are focusing on for CPD include community policing, impartial policing, crisis intervention, use of force, recruitment, hiring and promotion, officer wellness, accountability, data collection, and management. This consent decree was approved by federal judge Robert Dow and is enforced by Judge Dow. And how the consent decree came about was that in June of 2017, there was a lawsuit filed entitled Campbell versus Chicago. And again, in October of 2017, there was another civil lawsuit filed on behalf of Communities United against the city of Chicago. In August of 2017, the Office of the Attorney General sued the city of Chicago in federal court, and it was assigned to federal judge, Judge Dow, and that's how he became the person presiding over and enforcing the consent decree. And the Office of the Attorney General was seeking a consent decree in order to address the findings that the Department of Justice had made public in January of 2017. While the parties litigated in March of 2018, the parties, the Attorney General and the City of Chicago, came to an agreement and they entered into the consent decree. Also, they entered into a memorandum of understanding with the community organizations that had sued previously that are described above, Campbell versus Chicago and Communities United. They became commonly known as the coalition, and their rights are set out in paragraph 709 of the consent decree. The consent decree itself has 799 paragraphs. In January of 2019, the judge signed the consent decree. I was chosen to be the independent monitor in March of 2019, but I don't do it alone. I have a team that I work with of experts that include a deputy monitor, a project manager, and associate monitors that are experts in each of the areas that I described before, such as impartial policing and community policing, use of force, and all of the different areas of the consent decree. And they work with me in order to assess compliance of both the CPD and the other city entities. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what the independent monitoring team does. We report to Judge Dow. We review plans that CPD is going to have changed in protocol, procedures, process, and practice. We also observe police training and police work in the field. I myself have been out in the field with different officers on ride-alongs. We engage in outreach in the community to understand and learn if the community is truly feeling the changes that are being made at CPD. We also provide input to shape new policy and review the policies that are drafted by CPD. And then in the very end, we determine whether the city has reached compliance with the consent decree. And we then issue public reports. We issue public reports every 6 months. There's a monitoring period. And then after that, we write a report. You can find the reports that are already public on our website, which is cpdmonitoringteam.com. So what have we published so far? When I first became the monitor in March of 2019, we had 75 days to develop a monitoring plan for our first year. We developed that plan, and then it was reviewed by both the city and the Attorney General, and we filed that plan on May 30th of 2019, and that set out the paragraphs and the priorities we would be looking at for the first year. As I described earlier, each reporting period is 6 months. So our first report monitored the period, and I have to count because it's not on the calendar year. So that ended, I think, in approximately August or September 30th of that year. Then it was August 30th, I'm sorry. And we evaluated during that time. We collected many documents, attended many meetings, did investigations and reviewed policies during that time, and reported then regarding the compliance that CPD and the other city entities had met within the consent decree that came up during that first monitoring period. We also reported on whether deadlines were met or not. Our second report came out in June of 2020. Then we were into year 2, and we filed a monitoring plan for year 2. And that was in July 3rd. Again, we reviewed the consent decree, discussed with the Attorney General in the city, and wrote what paragraphs we would be assessing for year 2. The monitoring report for the third period is a little different because it happened during COVID. As we all know, everybody's life changed in the whole entire country and world. And so the monitoring period during COVID was extended 64 days. That was by agreement with the parties, and it was put into order by federal judge, Judge Dow. So we are currently in monitoring report period 3. We are doing most things different, just like how everybody is conducting things different this year. Instead of having site visits, we're having virtual site visits. So this way it makes sure we are ensuring the health of the monitors and the police officers and the different people that work in the agencies. And the monitoring period ends on December 30th of this year. We will then have a draft report ready that we will provide to the parties on January 30th of 2021. And what else does the independent monitoring team do? Well, in the wake of the protests following the tragic death of George Floyd, the IMT, and that's what we call ourselves. When I first started off with becoming the monitor, I never thought that I would learn all the acronyms of CPD and the other city agencies. And within a few short weeks, I was creating my own acronyms. And the independent monitoring team, we call ourselves the IMT. So following the tragic death of George Floyd, the IMT announced that we would be doing a special report regarding CPD's response to the protests. And during that time, we have been working with the Inspector General's office, and we have been, doing investigation. We've been reviewing documents. We've been holding interviews. And one of the most important things that we did, myself and Inspector General Joe Ferguson, we held a public listening session where Federal Judge Dow presided. We did 2 days of virtual hearings where members of the public were able to come forward and tell their story and what happened to them. This was done, we had people applied to be able to speak publicly at the listening sessions, and then we held a lottery. We did it, a random lottery of who would be able to speak publicly. And then those people that were not able to speak publicly provided written testimony if they wanted. This was very, very valuable information. We are currently, just wrapping up the investigation portion of that investigation, and we will be working on making that report public in the future. Details are available again at our website for information about the special report that we are writing. So one of the most important things that the IMT has done in this first year and a half of work is review policies, because we all know that the foundation of being able to meet any of the reforms is having the right and proper policies in place. We've reviewed numerous policies, thousands and thousands of pages, and some of the most important policies, such as use of force, policies on body-worn cameras, and school resource officers. And the IMT uses a 3-pronged test in order to determine compliance. The first is primary compliance, second is secondary, and third is operational. They convinced me that tertiary was not the way to go and did not have third compliance, that operational compliance was the way to go as I was originally naming them. But what primary compliance really means is that you have the right policies and procedures in place, and they're designed to achieve compliance. Secondary compliance is you now have the right policies in place, but you need to train on those policies. You have to have the proper supervision. You have to conduct audits and inspections to make sure that you are achieving and maintaining and monitoring the compliance and that the policies are being properly executed. And to truly achieve operational or full compliance, You have to make sure you have the right policies and procedures, that they are trained on, and that they're followed during the day-to-day operations of CPD, and that there's accountability when the policies and the procedures and the trainings are not followed. And most important, especially to everyone who takes their time and to be involved and to dial into these meetings, in order to achieve operational compliance, change has to be felt in the communities. And that's very important. And we have a community engagement team that works with the independent monitoring team. And I made up another acronym. We call them the CET. And they work with me and the other associate monitors to be out in the community and learning what is being felt in the community. What changes that CPD has made is being felt in the community. How is the community reacting? What does the community think of these policies, of the training, how they are being treated? We're very lucky to have Laura McElroy, Sadako Williams, who is the General Counsel and Vice President of Safer Foundation, Elena Quintana, who's with the Adler University, Joe Horath, who's with the UIC, Public Policy Institute, and Steve Rickman, who's the Associate Monitor for Community Policemen. Amongst them, they have a number of years of experience in working with the communities, and I feel very fortunate and really lucky to have them working with me. And so they work to really understand policing in the communities. We want to really know how the changes that CPD is making because of the consent decree are being experienced in the community. And truly, in order to do this, we need each of you. Have you felt that you were served by the Chicago Police Department? What is the level of trust in your community regarding CPD? And what changes would you like to see in CPD? You can contact myself and my team, as is right up here, at contact@cpdmonitoringteam.com. We want to know what you think and what you feel and what you are seeing in your community. We also, pursuant to the consent decree, did a community survey. The consent decree requires that we do this every other year to assess Chicago residents' perception of the Chicago Police Department on police services, trustworthiness, community engagement, effectiveness, responsiveness, handling of misconduct complaints and investigations, and interaction with members of the Chicago community. We conducted a survey, and it was filed and published in August of 2020. Just a couple months ago, and is available on our website. And we will be conducting a survey every other year. And we've learned some very important things that you could see in the chart that's up. But one of the most important things that we learned is that while 80% of white residents surveyed said police make them feel safer, less than half the Black residents who took part in the survey felt the same way. And just a third of young Black men felt that way. And only about half of all respondents said Chicago police officers are trustworthy. The overarching implication of this survey is that CPD has serious work ahead to gain the trust of Chicagoans. The experience of young Black men and their perception of CPD continues to deserve special attention. And during the off year, when we're not conducting a survey this year in the second year, we will be doing focus groups with groups of young Black and Latino men and their experience with CPD, and we will be publishing that at the end of year 2. So I ask you, get involved. Please visit our website. Send us your thoughts, your observations on our feedback form. Sign up for a newsletter we do. Attend a virtual community meeting. Send us an email. We want to hear about your experience. We know that you care, or you would not be attending this meeting tonight. So I want to thank you for your time and your attention and your involvement as a Chicagoan. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Board, anyone have any questions for Maggie?
Again, I had a question. Maggie, you mentioned that You did listening sessions that you thought were very helpful, and you did 2 days of virtual hearings. Were there any kind of common themes or ideas that came out of that, or do we need to wait for your report for that? I totally understand if it's the latter.
Yes, I'm sorry. There were common themes that we heard throughout that were repeated both the weekend of, May 29th, June 1st, June 2nd, the protest at the Columbus Day statute, and another protest that happened in August. But we will have to wait till everything's completed, and you'll have to stay tuned for the report.
Thank you for doing that, by the way. We're deeply appreciative, I think all of Chicago, by the efforts that you're making and your team is making.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your commitment.
Dan, I have a question. Maggie, maybe it might be helpful for everyone on the call if you can just give a high-level overview of some other major cities that have gone through a consent decree and how helpful that was and how long sometimes this process is. In other words, it's not an overnight fix, and that often consent decrees will go on for an extended or lengthy period of time. But generally, in the past, how successful are they in helping bridge that gap between the community and the police departments?
Sure. There have been many different consent decrees, and there's many consent decrees that are going on right now. Off the top of my head, I think of Los Angeles, which was successful in really turning around. And police reform is very important, because when police reform happens, then you're also able to affect crime. Because if you have that trustworthiness within the police department, then people will be more willing to cooperate with the police, and the solve rates of crimes go down. And Los Angeles, I believe it was unfortunately about 12 years. There was a time where I could have told you all of them, but I know that the average length of the consent decrees that I added up when I first took over, it averaged between 7 to 9 years for the completion of consent decrees. Seattle was under a consent decree, and they're almost reaching completion, but now they're holding it this year. I know well about that because one of my associate monitors, Kathy O'Toole, had been the police chief in Seattle during the consent decree. There is currently, consent decrees in New Orleans and Baltimore, Portland, and several other cities across the country. But it does take a lot of work. There are 799 paragraphs in the Chicago consent decree. It is one of the most comprehensive consent decrees in the country. There's also a consent decree in Albuquerque and in San Juan and Puerto Rico right now.
Thank you. Andy, did you have a question?
I did. Hey, Maggie, we hear a lot about the areas where the department has not made as much progress as they were required to or we want. Are there areas where you feel like the department has made progress that you are feeling positive about and about how the overall work is going?
Yes, there's many areas that the police CPD has made progress in, and I'm very careful and very balanced in my reports, and you'll see that even if they have not achieved compliance, we describe in each area all of the things that they have accomplished moving forward towards those goals. And so if somebody has, if CPD has not achieved compliance or even missed a deadline, sometimes they've missed a deadline, but then, come into compliance, or at least primary compliance. And in other instances, while they may not have reached compliance, they have done a lot of work moving forward to the paragraphs. And so CPD is doing work in each of the areas of the consent decree moving forward and definitely moving towards trying to achieve compliance.
Thank you. Reverend Edie?
Yes, Maggie Hickey, I'm a member of the faith community, and I would be just curious to know what you found in terms of the policies of interactions with the religious communities. What has that
Sure. Well, that's a very important part, and it's written into the consent decree that talks about, making sure that the harder to reach communities, religious minorities, and other things that they are reached out to, and that their voices are heard. I know that CPD does work with their community policing, and that they have, different organizations in each of the districts. And I've attended the faith-based meeting in, I believe, in Austin. I'm trying to remember which district, if that's.
That's 15.
So I've been to the faith-based meeting in 15, and we check to see, that the communities are being reached out to. And I myself have been to several different churches where I have spoken to groups that have asked me to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So callers, I apologize right now. We don't have the ability for you all to ask Maggie any questions right now. But the information, Maggie, I'm going to ask you, instead of me trying to repeat it, if you can give the website again, that would be great.
Sure. cpdmonitoringteam.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. And I look forward to hearing from the community members on this call, or people that they tell about it.
Thank you. A report of disciplinary actions taken by the board during the previous month are made available on the board's website. There are two disciplinary matters to announce this evening. Police board members Crowell and Flores will make these announcements.
Thank you, Gian. Gian, pursuant to Section 2-78-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter that Sydney, the Chief Administrator of COPA, and the Superintendent of Police did not agree on regarding the discipline of two police officers. Chief Administrator Roberts, she recommended that police officers David Taylor and Larry Lanier be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for firing at or in the direction of an individual in violation of General Order 03-02. Superintendent Brown recommended that the charges, or that the allegations, be classified as unfounded. I considered the matter, and it's my opinion that the superintendent did not meet his burden of overcoming the Chief Administrator's recommendation. Based on the facts and circumstances of the matter, again, an evidentiary hearing before the police board, I believe, is necessary to determine whether or not officers Taylor and Lanier violated any of the police department's rules of conduct. And a copy of this written decision will be posted on the board's website as required by the municipal code. And that's my report.
Thank you. Steve?
President Foreman, pursuant to Section 278-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter on which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of an officer. Chief Administrator Roberts recommended that Police Officer Luigi Sarli be discharged from the Chicago Police Department for discharging his firearm at or in the direction discharging his firearm at or into a moving vehicle in violation of General Order 03-02. Superintendent Brown disagreed with certain findings and recommended that Officer Luigi be suspended for 180 days. After considering the matter, it is my opinion that the superintendent did not meet the burden of overcoming the Chief Administrator's recommendation for discipline. And based on the facts and circumstances of this matter, an evidentiary hearing before the police board is necessary to determine whether Officer Sarli violated any of the police department's rules of conduct. A copy of the written decision will be posted on the board's website as required by the municipal code.
Thank you very much. The general orders and other directives issued by the superintendent during the previous month are posted on the police department's website. I'll now ask First Deputy Carter to provide an oral report. First Deputy.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here tonight to address the Chicago Police Board. I also want to extend my thanks to the members of the public that regularly participate in this virtual meeting. I'll begin tonight by providing an update on a topic that seems to be on everyone's mind, and that's the 2020 presidential election. Earlier today, CPD command staff, along with fire and other city agencies, participated in a tabletop exercise to prepare for election night on November 3rd. We were able to table and talk with a number of partners, including the Chicago Fire Department, Office of Emergency Management, Communications, the Board of Elections, Illinois State Police, and others. We're working to create a comprehensive plan that will be flexible with an eye on both our neighborhoods and downtown gathering spaces. 40 new police recruits began their instruction into the Chicago Police Academy on Monday. It's never been more of a difficult time to be a police officer, and in fact, 67 officers have been shot at this year, 10 of which of those officers have been struck by gunfire. And yet these fresh faces walk into the academy nonetheless, and this is the first new class to enter the academy since recruit training was suspended due to the coronavirus. The new class is also diverse, with 53% of the recruits identifying as Hispanic and 27% as African American. 30% of these new recruits are female, which we believe will have a considerable benefit to the department. And finally, I wanted to update everyone here on the Neighborhood Policing Initiative, which will be a game changer for the Chicago police and community. There are 46 district coordination officers that have began training last month, and they have now been assigned to the 9th, 10th, and 11th districts. I'm eager to see the impact these officers will have in their communities, and we believe this initiative has the ability to transform communities throughout the city of Chicago. These officers are trained to actually listen to residents, and tonight I'm here to listen to everyone participating in this meeting. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, First Deputy. Chief Roberts.
Good evening, everyone. President Foreman, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to everybody today. COPA just released its third quarter report, and I thought I would touch on a few things there. This past quarter, COPA logged just over 1,500 complaints, referring 1,059 to BIA and retaining for investigation just over 450. Fourth Amendment complaints continue to represent the largest complaint category, followed closely this last quarter by complaints of excessive force. As been mentioned, mass gatherings continued throughout this quarter, and so COPA continued to record complaints tied to protests. To date, actually at the end of September 30th, there were more than 500 protest-related complaints. Also, I wanted to mention that this past quarter, COPA made 4 referrals to criminal law enforcement agencies. COPA's major incident response team reported to and have opened for investigation 17 officer-involved shootings. We closed 329 investigations, of which 60 were closed with a finding of sustained, not sustained, unfounded, or exonerated. This included 14 officer-involved shootings, as one of which involved the February shooting of the CTA Red Line. COPA also closed the protest-related complaint involving the officer who heralded a homophobic slur during the protest. And in furtherance of our commitment to transparency and building trust amongst the residents of Chicago, COPA released video and other related materials in 12 use of force investigations, 2 of which were released in less than 30 days. We met virtually with more than 20 different organizations across Chicago. We also met with residents and elected officials from Philadelphia interested in expanding the role of civilian oversight in the city. And we met with federal legislators to comment on pending federal legislation aimed at improving police reform and police accountability. COPA also participated as a panelist during the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement's annual conference addressing the school to prison pipeline. Anybody interested in more information about COPA's activities over this last quarter can go to our website at www.chicagocopa.org. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my remarks.
May I ask a question? How does the volume of complaints for this quarter compare to a year ago or 2 years ago? Generally. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Chief.
Thank you. Yes, our complaints are higher this year than they were last year. However, the second quarter, the majority of the second quarter, our complaints had gone down. So we are projecting to be approximately taking the same number of complaints that we took in last year. So the second quarter will likely offset that. So we think we're trending back to 2019. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, sure.
Yes, thank you. I will now call upon members of the public who signed up in advance to speak. Each speaker will be unmuted after I call his or her name. Let me just confirm. Do we have the ability to unmute, or do we have to press *6? Max?
The speaker will have to press *6.
Okay, so speaker, as I call your name, if you could please press *6. I do not see the first caller, but I'm going to call Betty Wilson. Betty Wilson. The next speaker, Chris F. Chris F. Is not joined. The third speaker, CPD Transparency. If you can please press *6. All right, there we go.
Hello again. Where's the full IG report on Eddie Johnson? What's taking so long with the cover-up of the cover-up? I'm referring to the identified slumping object named Eddie Johnson. We want the Zapruder identified slumping object X file. Eddie blew off one Donald and got blown by another. They need to put a black light on that Tahoe in the superintendent's office and then burn them. Was Eddie Johnson's wife, Nakia Fenner, made Commander Area 2 RBT? Was the power test waived for his son Daniel Johnson's entire graduating class of 218 recruits because Eddie knew Daniel couldn't pass? The lament is heard all across CPD. Why can't my boss read or write? If cops cheat each other for promotions, what makes you think they won't cheat the public? Why do some evidence technicians not work as such but are paid as such? CPD has a screaming need for a zero-tolerance alcohol drug abuse policy and a zero-tolerance sexual harassment policy. All addicts are liars. I want to talk about two things. First, the last FOP president, Kevin Graham, was suspended from the police union for 3 years for placing a surreptitious camera allegedly with remote access in FOP President John Catanzaro's office. Kevin said, quote, didn't do nothing. Funny, that's what Kevin always says. If we had placed a hidden camera in someone's office, we'd be arrested. Either Catanzaro is crazy or Kevin committed a felony. Which is it? Second, I want the name and star of the drunk Chicago police officer caught urinating all over the Chicago Police Memorial near Soldier Field, and the on-duty Chicago police officer who caught him yet did nothing. The drunk cop said, it's my park too. Then he said, save it, I'm a cop too, and he claimed to have worked with two of the names on the wall. Do any of you have family on the wall? The cop urinating was white, wasn't he? That's the thin blue line code of silence. Graham, no consequence. Get drunk, urinate all over the police memorial, no consequences. Can black people urinate all over the police memorial now too? With no consequences? I believe they might take you up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Krista Noel.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Kristen.
How is everyone? I don't know if that was Maggie. Hi, Maggie. I'm glad everybody is fine and safe. My issue is the use of force policy and CPD dismissing 155 of the recommendations, which is absolutely ridiculous. But besides that, I do want to make a comment. First Deputy, I don't know how long you've been with the Chicago Police Department, but if you consider this the worst year of the Chicago Police Department, I ask you to go back to the year where 5 police officers were killed, okay? That's a little bit more serious and a little bit more worrisome than 7 getting shot, okay? With that being said, I I had a question for the police board. I've been coming there for a long time, and I'm kind of interested in some numbers from you, and I'd like to see if you guys could get this together. What's the breakdown of how many police officers come to you guys by race and by gender, and how many of them are fired by race and gender? I'm wondering if you guys could do that.
I'll talk to Max about it. So for sure, we have the information about guilty or innocent and what the punishment was. Whether or not we keep track of race and gender, I'm not sure. But we'll get back to you with that answer.
Yeah, I think that's important because I want to make sure that there's no bias when it comes to males over females, and there's no bias when it comes to white folk over black folk, or the other colors that are out there. Okay, so with that being said, can the Chicago Police Department tell me why they didn't accept 155 of the recommendations?
First Deputy, do you have any thoughts on that one now?
We'll get the answer back to the board and have that pushed out. That's a comprehensive list of reasons why. Some of them didn't meet, were against state law. Some of them were against our current policies. A lot of them were actually already within our current policies, so there was there was a lot of redundancy in what was being asked of us. But I will get you an answer out, comprehensive answer on all the questions you just asked for that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm interested. Okay, thanks. So I'm interested because you had Chicago Police Department sitting on the use of force working group, and you're telling me that recommendations went past police officers that weren't by state law. As far as your policies are concerned, your policies have to change if we suggest that they change. So I don't see that being an excuse for rejecting.
If I might, Krista, well, let's get the report back, and we can take a look at it from there. And we have Maggie on the call now, and this is one of the things that they are very likely taking a look at as well. And so I look forward to getting that report back from you, First Deputy, and Ms. Noel will make sure that we fill you in with the appropriate information.
With respect, I will get that report because Women's All Points Bulletin is a part of Campbell, so we'll get the report. I wanted answers.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to come in the report. But
right, well, that's what he said. He's going to get back to us with the comprehensive list of reasons why. So we'll work to make sure that we get that for you. I have to keep moving. Next speaker is Joel Hammernick.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. President Foreman, thanks for allowing me to share some base comments. I was on the call a month ago and was describing a project that we've begun to take place in the 3rd District. We have put together a group of community residents to read the consent decree together, section by section. So we're not reading all however many 100 paragraphs Maggie was saying are in it at once. We're looking at it one section at a time, and together we're asking 4 questions. What exactly has the city committed to do? How are we doing on those promises, and how do we know how we're doing on those promises? Meaning, what is the data and where's the data coming from? And then very importantly, what does it actually mean for our district? We don't really live in the city as a whole. We live in our district. And so we're particularly interested in thinking about how these promises, how these reforms through the consent decree impact us at a district level. Going into our most recent call, we reviewed, I read through the IMT report that just came out, and I pulled 5 questions out to share with the group. Do you think CPD is trustworthy? As Maggie pointed out, about half the city does not trust the police officers in our city. This is a tragic, problem. And of course, if you ask Black people in our neighborhood or young Black people in our community, it's worse. And so we want to do things that lead to what everybody has been saying, the police department, the mayor's office, everybody else. We want to build trust and we want to build relationship in a way that leads to an improvement in policing and frankly for the quality of life for police officers as well, not just community members. One of the things that I asked for last time was to help us understand how are our commanders evaluated? What are the metrics to say this is a good commander or that one's not a good commander? And then what is the average tenure of commanders and officers in our district? And it took me a little while finally to get through to Chief Boyd, but I finally spoke with him yesterday, and I'm thankful for his response. But I'll just finish by saying this. We, I believe, are on our 14th or 15th police commander in 17 years that I've lived in the 3rd District. And trust and relationship are impossible when the commanders and the police officers are rotating so frequently. Thank you for giving me some time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, June Norfleet. Ms. Norfleet.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I am so glad to have the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I'm grateful to my fellow citizens that they have already touched on the subjects that I had planned to bring to the board and make public for those of us who live in the Grand Crossing area. So I'll just reiterate. 1, we are concerned and dismayed that such a significant number of the use of force recommendations were not sustained, and we do ask that that is reviewed. Point in question is, what is the process for us as citizens to have that reviewed under a formal process? Secondly, I was glad to hear one of the deputy chiefs speak about the fact that there is planning going on for the post-election period. We would be remiss and naive if we did not have a plan in place, some readiness in the event at post-election, however it goes. We must have that, and it cannot just be for one night. We must look at a broader horizon. And we have a lot of work to do to enhance the support and the communication and partnership with the police department. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and everyone stay safe. Good night.
Thank you very much, Ms. Norfleet. Next speaker, Jennifer Edwards. Good evening, Ms.
Okay,
Edwards.
good evening, everybody. I'd want to read just a couple of things. We appreciate the collaboration of the CPD 6th District and the Cook County Sheriff Initiative Unit. The appreciation is evident in the increasing numbers of community participants at the roll calls in our areas on the past 4 Wednesdays. We also thank the CPD and the superintendent for their willingness to collaborate with the Sheriff's Unit. After just 4 weeks in our area, the collaboration has been successful in resulting in a reduction of shots fired, a reduction in violent crimes, and positive community engagement. The community is interested and thankful. Our optimum goal is to continue collaboration and increase positive community interaction, produce contacts for the NPI program, improve the community policing model, and expand the concept of creating community outposts for community residents and police use. Probably the number of abandoned homes in our area can help with this. We're also interested in supporting the mental health crisis response alternative model to be presented in the City Council to assist community members in crisis, because we recognize that police cannot handle all situations, and because many police calls, domestic calls, may be a result of mental health issues. We want to thank you for the new 3rd District Initiative. And Matt Brandon says hello. He's on the 6th District Community Conversation. And that's all we have to say. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. So First Deputy and Maggie, I want to point out a couple of things. So we just heard from Ms. Edwards this is a group of neighbors that come to the police board every month, probably for the last year or so. And, you know, they come with legitimate concerns, but not just with concerns, they also come with some potential solutions, right? And so here today, typically, we're going to hear about all the things that the police are not doing well, right? But in this case, the community is coming with a potential solution. Might not be the solution that everybody likes, but I think it shows a good way how community and police kind of work together. And then going back to the example of a community member, Joel Hammernick, getting community members together, Maggie, and you know, going line by line through the consent decree. So any resources that are available there, these are the kinds of things that we want to try to make sure that we're bringing to the police board. So it's not just 2 minutes of speaking and then see you next month, but to make sure that there's some actionable items that we can take out of this and really kind of create this dialogue that will allow us to move forward and really make some improvements. So thank you for that parentheses. Next speaker, Larisse Suttle. And I do not think that I saw her sign in. Larisse Suttle. Oh, yes, Larisse Suttle. Yes. You have to press *6, Miss Suttle, if you can hear me. Okay. Next speaker, Flora Suttle. Flora Suttle. If you can press *6. I'll call on you again. I believe it's Larisse Suttle. I can see that you're on. I'll try you back. Next speaker, John Perryman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just here to talk tonight. In May, I came with you guys with a concern about our parks on the west side. There's a specific park with a large drug market that's affecting the entire park, and it's making it pretty much unusable. Large amounts of needles, violence in the park, and encampments. So this is something I brought in May, and the superintendent, I met with them, and they said they were on it, and we're just not getting much improvement. The park is still flourishing. I did see some police out there today. That always happens right before a police board meeting. Something gets activated, but then after the meeting, the status quo remains. So as you can tell, I'm probably, I'm kind of frustrated about it, but I would like to hear from a representative from the police about this specific issue and about what's going on or any kind of updates, because we lost an entire summer of being able to use our parks in a time when outdoor space is extra necessary. And it just seemed like this problem was shoved to the side, kind of given lip service in these meetings. So I would just like to hear from the police representative that's there tonight, but if I can hear what's happening over there.
Mr. Perryman, I'm sorry, but I'm unaware of which park you speak. Can you tell me what park you're talking about?
This is Garfield Park.
Garfield Park's a pretty large park. Is there any specific location around Garfield Park? Intersection, corner, or?
Might I do this first, Deputy? If I might, Mr. Perryman. This was a last minute switch for the first deputy to come in. And so it's a lot of intel that you would kind of have to gather right now. And there's been some ongoing conversations. Certainly, Chief Cato has been involved in some of the conversations. So if I might ask, First Deputy, if I can get you in touch with Mr. Perryman, maybe if we can get an opportunity for you to gather a little bit of information while the superintendent is unavailable, and we can have a follow-up conversation. Because this has been an ongoing problem for Mr. Perryman, and some very specifics has been discussed.
It's a problem for our community.
Well,
it's not my problem, it's a community problem.
Pardon me, but you've been the representative coming really representing the community right now. So rather than trying to repeat all of the different instances and corners, if I can make an arrangement for you guys to speak, First Deputy, get you up to speed on it, and then we can do some follow-up with Mr. Perryman.
I'd appreciate that.
Since we've spoken so many times already, can we just set up a meeting to get this sorted? Because part of it is this humiliation of having to explain the problem again and again and again that I would like to avoid.
Right. So that's why what I'm suggesting right now is we will get you with first deputy. You've already spoken with the superintendent, so now we'll get you with the first deputy, and hopefully we can try to get some resolve. Last month you gave a big compliment, right? This month not so much. So we want to get back on the compliment train, and we want to see some action for the community. So.
Yeah, and I would probably take back that compliment because we're getting kind of stuck. I'm getting lip service, I'm getting ideas, but no implementation. And it's unsafe. There was someone shooting an AK-47 on the edge of the park 2 weeks ago. It's unsafe. It's an unsafe place to be. And it's not right that there's a large market that's going on flagrantly. And we would like some attention on that matter immediately. Real attention with follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. We only have one speaker left, so I'm just going to run by the speakers who I've already called. Betty Wilson, Chris F., Laree Suttle. Ms. Suttle, are you still here? No. Flora Suttle. Oh, Laree Suttle. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good evening, Superintendent, First Deputy, members of the board, Chief Roberts. Nice to hear that the independent monitor is on the call tonight. My name is Laree Suttle. I live within the 4th Police District. This month, if possible, I'd like to keep my shared updates brief. First, I'd like to thank the participants from the community, Mayor's Office for Public Safety, and Community on Public Safety City Council members for this morning's violence reduction contract hearing. I think this conversation was necessary, timely, and raised very interesting points of community coordination, expectation, resources, training and supervising for serving populations, and reporting and tracking. I hope Chicagoans will join the Committee on Public Safety virtually next week for CPAC versus GAPA hearings. I also like to thank CPD's 4th, 7th, 9th, 15th, and 22nd districts for hosting their virtual community conversations. Officers and residents of that district had a ton of good conversation and things to report back. I know the 6th and 10th district are currently having their virtual community conversations tonight. I wish them luck. I wish I can join them. And I know that the 3rd and the 11th district has virtual community conversations coming up. So some things that jumped out to me as common themes so far in our conversations are community engagement, violence, drugs, accountability, quality of life. And my grandmother, Flora Suttle, currently she's recovering from tonsil cancer. She survived 35 sessions of radiation these past 8+ weeks, but she wanted to share that she's reviewed the COPA's 28-page rules and regulations effective April 13th, 2018, specifically referring to, I believe, page 7, Article 2 on reopening investigations. And she wanted to know who she could talk to within the Deputy of Inspector General for Public Safety about my father, Derek Suttle's closed case. So that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker is Mr. Robert Moore.
Mr. Foreman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, but you're gonna have to put one of your phones, you're gonna have to put it on mute.
Okay, gotcha. I just turned it off. Okay, here's the situation. First of all, is the superintendent present tonight or not?
The superintendent is not present. The first
How is
deputy
it justified, since he doesn't have to be physically present, what is it that rendered it not possible to get a recording of his demeanor, demanded that in the past? Why couldn't he participate remotely like the rest of us are?
He has a substitute here, Mr. Moore. I don't want to use your time. like this.
Okay, but time out. Okay, Mr. Foreman, you know what? You do some positive things. You're juggling balls. You're keeping things in the air. But I cannot continue to countenance the interception of my petitions that are directed towards the superintendent. You are supposed to simply regulate the activity. And if you want to speak after about something I spoke, you're invited to do that. But I got 120 seconds. I need to make a public record. My purpose in these conveyances is either A, get stipulations from the city of Chicago, including the superintendent. He's the chief policy maker. He's responsible for the activity that's conducted by his subordinates. That's number one, is to get stipulations. Number two is to contribute to the controlling of the presentation of his state of mind. As I've explained before, this is so important. If Keurig's state of mind had been controlled coming up to the month before September 11th, Keurig was the superintendent in the city's New York Police Department. Someone had been controlling the presentation of his state of mind, or of any one of the top 10 people responsible for the False Flag Terror Act on September 11th, it probably never would have happened. The third issue is to make a public record for posterity's sake, okay? Because this is so important to present accurate history of the actual causes of observable phenomena that constitute unjustified detriment to legitimate reliance interests. So whatever your intention is, I impute to you, I'll give you the benefit of a doubt, but please, you've got to discontinue the interception of my conveyances. You can comment afterwards. What I can't say in this conveyance is going to be posted in the website, JN21-15, PROTCTR.tripod.com. I disclaim the continued existence and operation of all nominal government entities which are controlled by the 10 banking families and actually constitute instruments of the.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll let you go over since I took a little bit of some of your time, so hopefully you don't hold that against me. I went over the 2 minutes. At this time, all members of the public who signed up in advance to speak have been called. But before I call for a motion for adjournment, I just wanted to take this time to remind everyone of two things. One, census. This is the last opportunity we have. Fill out the census. It's very important. Brings a lot of resources to our city, so that's very important. And secondly, let's make sure that we vote. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Paula Wolf. I move we adjourn.
Yes, Michael Eady, second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 At this time, the motion passes and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. And everyone, please stay safe. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Good night.
Everyone.
Good night. Thank you.